everyone! Welcome back to my channel. In today's tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to make this really cute winter cape, which is honestly like the easiest project ever. If you know how to sew a straight line, you'll be able to make this. And it's a really fun alternative to a winter coat. I really hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and if you do, please give the video a thumbs up, and I would love it if you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on any more tutorials. And let's get sewing! To make this cape, you'll need about 1 3/4 yards of a fleece fabric, which is so cozy and comes in practically every color, print, or character you could want. And you'll need to make sure the fabric has a width of at least 58 inches, which is pretty standard for fleece. You'll also need a closure for the front. The one I'm using is called a frog closure, which is super easy to use and perfect for beginners, so I definitely recommend it. And if you like the look of multiple closures on the front, you can get as many as you'd like. Begin by cutting your fabric into a large square that measures about 58 by 58 inches. And this project is so great for beginners because women's capes are usually one size fits all, so you don't have to worry about fit issues. Lay it so the correct side of the fabric is facing up and bring one of the corners down to the opposite corner, so you're folding the square in half diagonally to create a triangle. Smooth it out so all the edges line up, then pin the raw edges together. Sew along both raw edges, but leave about an 8-inch section on one of the sides unsewn so we can turn the triangle right side out later. Use a 1/2-inch seam allowance and a straight stitch, and always backstitch whenever you start and stop sewing to secure your seams. When you get about halfway down one side, stop sewing, cut your thread, and move about 8 inches down the fabric before you begin sewing again, and this will leave that gap we need in the stitches. Then when you get to the corner, leave the needle in the fabric and raise the presser foot to rotate the cape. Lower it and continue sewing again all the way down to the end of the fabric. Now that the triangle is sewn, reach into the opening you left in the stitches and pull the fabric through that gap to turn the cape right side out. Poke out the corners with your fingers so they form a neat point and smooth out the fabric so it lays nice and flat. Sew a row of stitches all the way around the triangle close to the edge, which closes up the gap in the stitches and adds a nice detail, and this is called top stitching. I like to top stitch about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge, but if it's easier for you, you can sew 1/4 of an inch away. Bring your needle as far to the right as possible and use the edge of the presser foot as a guide to sew along the edge of the fabric. I found that using a thread that blends in with the fabric looked best on fleece, so I used a light gray. When you get to the corners, leave your needle in the fabric and rotate the cape before continuing down the next side, repeating all the way around the triangle. And you can see here, this creates a really nice finished detail. Lay your triangle so the longest edge is going along the top. To fold it into the shape of the cape, bring the top left point on the triangle down so it meets the bottom corner, like this. Then bring the top right point down to the bottom corner as well, so you've created a diamond shape with a slit down the center. The top of that slit will be where the cape sits at the back of your neck, and I've zoomed in closer to work on the neckline here. To make the cape's collar, you simply need to fold the top portion of the fabric around the slit over a couple of inches. As you fold the fabric back, it creates the neckline and a really nice collar shape. You can make the collar as large or as small as you'd like, so try it on and see how you want it to look. When you're happy with the shape, you could use a needle and thread to tack it down in a couple of places to secure it, but I like to adjust the shape of the collar when I wear it, so I didn't do this. Next, grab your closure. This frog closure consists of looped pieces of rope that join together with a knot, and it's so easy to use. Lay it down onto the cape slightly below the collar, and when you're doing this, it's important that the edges of the opening of the cape sit right against each other, and this will help to make sure that there's not a huge gap between the fabric when you close the cape. When it's evenly positioned, pin it into place and grab a needle and thread the same color as your clasp and knot it at the end. Move the knotted side of the cape and closure out of the way so we can sew this piece down first. Feed the needle up from the back of the closure to the front, which hides the knot behind it, and begin stitching the center down onto the cape, sewing up and down several times. When the center is secure, sew around the top, left, and bottom loops to secure them, leaving this loop on the edge of the cape unsewn so you'll be able to use it to close the cape up. Sew often around the 3 loops to make sure they're nice and secure. I sewed through both layers of fleece because I don't mind that my stitches are visible on the inside of the cape since I'm the only one seeing them, and that's definitely easiest. But if you do want your stitches to be hidden, you could take the extra time and care to only sew through the outside layer of the fleece. It'd definitely be more tedious, but it would look neat on the inside. When you're done, knot the thread on the back of the cape, or if you're hiding your stitches, knot it underneath the closure, and now one side is secure. Move that side out of the way and attach the other side of the closure the exact same way. Sew up and down to secure the center, then sew around the 3 loops, leaving the entire knotted section unsewn so you'll be able to close up the cape. Make sure to sew up and down frequently so it's completely secure, knot the thread on the back, and now you have a working clasp that was so easy to attach. Although I just used one, I do think it'd look great with multiple closures going down the front too, and now your cape is ready to wear. It's such a fun piece that can be dressed up or down, and since it's made out of fleece, it literally feels like you're wearing a blanket. Thanks for watching, and happy sewing, y'all! And let's get sewing! Don't know if the kid crying in the background was heard or not, but that was decent. This one is too bad. That sun was really awkward. Well, at this point, what I have is gonna work.